Order. Roll call, please.
Chris Elmer.
Here.
Chris Freeman. Here. Bill Disselberger. Ken Gallagher.
Here.
Ryan Mallett.
Here.
Tim Black. Chris Thomas.
Here.
Okay, first item on the agenda, and if you guys could please in the back row, can you hear me back there? Raise your hand if you can. Okay, great. Thank you.
Louder.
Louder?
Louder.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first item on the agenda, we have minutes from June 4th, 2018. Anybody have any changes or look for a motion?
Move approval.
Motion by Pat McGowan, seconded by Chris Thomas. Any other comments? Call the question, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Next, we've got public comment on items not on the agenda. Is there anybody who'd like to address the commission on an item that's not on the agenda for this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on. New business. First item is public hearing and discussion action on a conditional use permit to operate a dog daycare, lot 15, Waunakee Business Park.
Chris, I'll take this. Try and talk a little louder. There's a proposed doggy daycare in lot 15 in the Waunakee Business Park. The full submittal is incomplete at this point. We are recommending we hold a public hearing, and the staff has concluded that we'll need an additional amendment to general development plan in order for it to be allowed in that particular place. So it's a policy decision in terms of the plan commission of whether or not you want to proceed. I would suggest holding a public hearing, and then you can have a discussion amongst yourselves.
Okay? Then I will open up the public hearing for anybody who'd like to address the commission on this item. Okay, then we'll close the public hearing.
So Chris, the issue is that we already amended the general development plan to allow for doggy daycares. The issue is that it doesn't allow for outdoor use of the doggy daycares. It would have to be all indoor, because there's another portion of the general development plan that states that all businesses must operate within an enclosed building. They can't operate outside. So if the plan commission is in favor of allowing such a use, certainly could put restrictions on it, and would have it very limited to doggy daycares or this particular lot or other restrictions, so to further restrict it if you thought this particular use was appropriate at that place.
Okay? Plan Commissioner? Susan?
It's my understanding the adjacent property owners are in support.
Yes.
Is that correct? I don't have a problem with it because this kind of use is really popular in communities today. I've got it out there and on Main Street. It goes to a lot of houses. I would like to maybe see some information later as to how, if there's a lot of noise with dogs barking and it does become disruptive for some reason, how they might mitigate that. And definitely something that we staff later. And then the disposal of waste.
Yeah, that will be professionally picked up weekly. Yeah, it won't be.
Is weekly enough in the summer?
We'll see. I mean, I would imagine that we would have recommendations for the professional services that would do that, but absolutely. Yeah, we don't want to feel like, I think we also submitted the kind of general outline as to when the dogs would be outside, when they're rested, when they're outside, how many would be outside, at what times, a fairly structured schedule that I believe was submitted. I don't know, maybe Justin.
And it'll be overnight?
No, it was not in our daycare. That is another person, yeah, that's, yeah.
I was just curious on that about staffing. Can you keep staff there?
Oh, on site?
Yeah.
I'm not sure because I'm not doing the boarding portion, I'm just doing daycare and training. I would assume that they would want someone there.
Just in terms of arranging the video and all, if anybody's engaging from the audience with the commission, if you could come up to the mic, I think that would really help, so we can pick it up on the video.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
That's the last question.
Yeah, will you have your hand up?
Is there outdoor, a dog daycare with outdoor activities in the industrial park, in the business park to the south of this? For some reason, that I thought we were talking
You want me
about.
to address that?
Sure.
In the town of Waunakee? Or Village of Waunakee?
In the village.
Excuse me, yeah. So the Waunakee Vet is opening their new building, and they do have dog daycare as well as a pretty decent sized outdoor space. And then we also know that Occupy does business outside all the time. And they are in the newer part.
And I would agree with Sue, this doesn't seem like in an industrial area like this, an inconsistent use at all, so that's.
Any other questions? Oh, sorry. I guess I don't know. There it is.
Brian, any comments?
Just want to double check the back side of that lot, that property adjacent, the burns up.
Yes, you're right. It does,
Would be a little bit,
almost like a sound barrier.
well, it's like kind of the route I'm starting to think, is a little bit of visual, a little bit of sound barrier opportunities. And I don't know if I saw.
You can't really see the other lot from that lot. You look up, it's, yeah.
I'm just starting to think through ideas of visual or noise containment, a landscape barrier or something.
We would have that.
On top of that berm as additional height.
And the dogs are engaged, honestly. A good portion of the time, we're not that dog daycare that throws them out there. We're gonna be well staffed, and the staff will be versed in dog behavior, so dogs are gonna be well enriched all the time. We're going to great lengths to make sure of that. But we also have support letters from Helen Brand, Graver, and I guess the person that owns the lot next door to us, Dan, is in favorship. Anything else?
Anything, Chris? Okay. So you're recommending that table for now?
We table,
until we get it
but I
completed?
think I got clear direction from the planning commission that they want us to start the process of drafting and then general development plan to allow this particular use in this particular lot.
Everybody good with that? Okay. Next, we've got public hearing discussing action on a conditional use permit for Monticello Square pylon sign, 1350 Mountain View Avenue.
I don't think the developers are ready to present on this. We can certainly hold a public hearing. The staff is recommending, I think the developer concurs, that we would request that the commission table this so that we can have further discussions at a staff level with the developer on other alternatives.
Okay, then I'll open up the public hearing on this item. Or anybody who'd like to address the commission? If you could just please state your name and address, sir.
Caleb Gobble, 206 West Second Street. I guess in relation to this proposal and the previous ones, how can we have a sufficient public comment period when we don't have complete and final designs in place? We don't know what we would be commenting on. So I guess I would put that to the commission of, if we don't have a fully finalized plan that the commission can take action on, how can we expect the public to make educated comments on those items?
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to address the commission on this item? Okay, then I'll close the public hearing on this. So based on what you're saying, Kevin, we are deferring?
We would request that the planning commission table it and to address his comment. It's really been our practice at the planning commission level that even if there's not a public hearing required, that you would allow comment on a particular item.
Can you say that louder, please, in the minutes, just so everybody hears that?
So even if it's not a public hearing, so if we continue the public hearing to another date, it's been the general practice of the planning commission to allow public input on those items.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so look for a motion to be tabled.
So moved.
Motion by Pat McGowan, second by Brian Mallett. Any other comments? Call the question, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Third, we have public hearing discussion action on a conditional use permit to install additional wall signage at 1004 Quinn Drive. Kevin?
Yeah, and let me just do a quick introduction. We can turn it over to the applicant for a presentation then you can take a public hearing. So there's a proposal that would put vinyl window graphics on an approved dog daycare on Quinn Drive. So this is the other dog daycare that's not in the business park, but in the office park. So we're going to ask the Planning Commission really to make a policy decision because we're concerned about setting a precedent in terms of calling this either signage or calling it an architectural element. So I gave the Planning Commission, I guess, the 3 different alternatives that we can have a discussion on. So with that, I would ask the applicant to make a presentation and we can have a public hearing.
Perfect. You're on, Wes. If you can just state your name and your business.
Wes Arnett, the Waunakee United Plant. So my objective with this is we just recently moved from a 3,200 square foot facility to a 20,000 square foot facility. The additional services that we are now offering include the medical side of things, which we always have. And the new services include doggy daycare, grooming, and luxury boarding suites, as well as training or dog training services, of which yesterday we had 8 dogs or puppies enrolled in a dog training class, which will last for 6 weeks. And moving from a 3,200 square foot facility to a 20,000 square foot facility, plus the additional 3/4 of an acre squared in outdoor area, fenced in. The only signage that we've been allowed so far is a 3-foot by 6-foot monument, which is very small. The 3,200 square foot facility that we had allowed more than the 3-foot by 6-foot monument that we currently have. So what I'm asking for is on 4 corners of the building to allow for some architectural enhancement, which would include client pictures or graphics on the corners of the building that would help to identify our building as a veterinary clinic, one that now allows daycare, boarding. One of the things I just recently got done doing was 2 days I drove around the outskirts of Waunakee. And from an architectural standpoint, some of the things that I looked at with the existing businesses was, what do they have? What are they showing? What are they exhibiting in their windows? So what I'm asking for is the corners of my building to be able to exhibit graphics in a vision film sort of way, which does not encompass the full window, but actually 50% of the window, since vision film does or has holes in 50% of the graphics. Now, when I went around and looked at the existing businesses in Waunakee, and I can transmit and send around the paper, the paper that I just recently got done getting ready, is we have numerous businesses in Waunakee that are doing what I'm asking to do, that are advertising Big Macs, donuts, iced lattes, seafoam engine treatments in your vehicles, oil specials, tanning, CrossFit, climbing ropes, all of those sorts of things, which are in what should be distributed. So I don't think that what I am asking is anything above and beyond the Captain Morgan's, the Smirnoffs, the Bud Light, the Coors Light, the other graphics that are going on in businesses right around town. And I'm hoping that you will allow, since I am coming to you in a legal fashion, acknowledging that this needs to come before the planning commission, pay a fee, pretty significant fee, to help market a new business that went from 3,200 square foot to 20,000 square foot. And I'm going about it in the right way, asking you for permission and not just throwing some signs up in a window that would blink a neon green, yellow, red light that says, we're open. Hello, we're here. So I'm not asking to, in the windows that I'm proposing, out of which 53 windows in my 20,000 square foot facility, I'm asking for those corner windows. And I know I'm asking for something that, from a planning commission standpoint, is a little bit awkward. How do you deal with that? When most people don't even ask, they just post, they just do. But I'm asking for your permission to make an architectural improvement in this 20,000 square foot facility that will benefit the Waunakee community to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, after that, I'm going to open up the public hearing in regards to this item for anybody who'd like to speak on it. Okay, then I'll close the public hearing on this. So I've got a couple of questions. Jason, mostly to you right now with this. You wrote a recommendation on page 2 of 2?
50 of 294.
50 of 294. With the signs as they're proposed, are they going to exceed the 150 square feet?
No, I don't believe so.
The windows in question are 23 by 44.
So with the three options that are given us, can staff share with us, if you look at the architectural element,
Yeah, I
what
think
do we
that's,
open ourselves up to? I mean,
that's it's a tad bit of a stretch to call it an architectural element. Typically, when we call something architectural element, it'll be a wind vane, or it'll be not necessarily final window design. So I think that was troubling from a staff perspective in order to get there. The second one's easy to deny, it's called a sign, and it doesn't meet the standard. I think the third option is with a special exception under the conditional use, and that's the process that's been following. You certainly could add the signage, and then you'll get these case by case. I think the concern is that this might open, this may open the opportunity for others to make such requests. And I think the gentleman made a pretty good point. There's
Yes, go ahead, Jason.
Sorry, I just want to clarify.
Jason, can you put your mic up so everybody can hear you?
Yeah, sorry, is that better? I think we're talking about 14 and a half square feet per window, and we have about 6 windows, and so that's 845 square feet, not the 291.
Okay.
And so that's within 150, still allowing space within that 150 foot all the time.
So with that conclusion, then it would meet what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Or no?
Yes.
Or no?
Well, it's within the 150 square feet.
The sign versus a window sign, which has a 25% limitation.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think you need to confirm how you want it to read. It doesn't exactly meet the definition of a window sign, in part because a window sign is very specifically defined. But it's having that decaling on the inside.
So my question then is, when the examples provided for us, some of them are temporary signs, they're not going to be up. But as I look at others, where I'm seeing neon signs taking up heavily, I'm guessing those don't come down real often. Is that fair to say? And those also light up and go off at night. I'm assuming that this is not a light up window decal?
Back to the ambient light on no, these are temporary. They can be removed at any point in time. Hence the 60 feet. So at any point in time, anybody within the office part of the agreement would have an objection, and they can produce a accurate or whatever objection, these can be removed. So they are temporary, they are not neon, they're not plug-in, they can be removed at any point in time.
Plan Commissioner? Comments?
Sure, certainly have no problem at all. I mean, people are doing it all over the place here, don't know all this the right way, coming to us and asking. Seems like in Madison, they draw a difference between inside the window and outside the window. And inside the window, you can do anything you want, and it doesn't count. And I don't know if that's how we treat it or not. We'll see retail stores on State Street with their entire windows covered with exactly what you're putting on your 50% coverage. People can see outside fine, and you still get your message across. So, I guess I would be in favor of allowing you to do it. You're doing it the right way. I can't imagine anybody's going to have a problem driving by the building and seeing pictures of a dog and cat on a window outside the building. And I guess just encouraging, working with staff and how we do that to say, let's make sure Wes can do this, he's doing it the right way, and make sure we're prepared with the language that we put in place. I don't know if we've got the right motion to make the right motion here to say, yeah, this makes sense because of the size of the building, because of the coverage in the windows, because it's inside, and that we're prepared when, another restaurant or liquor store or something comes, that we're prepared to deal with it in a fair and consistent manner.
I appreciate that, I'm not trying to knock any of the businesses that you're sitting there looking at. And I wish I had a program that would allow me to just knock out and block out the businesses that you can maybe see on that example. I'm not saying that they skirted the law to put a Jack Daniels, a Smirnoff, a Britannia, a laser therapy, suntan, whatever. I just want to go about it the right way. I contacted Don Tierney. Talked to Don. Don, are you here?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
British dog.
Don, I love you, man. Okay. And have not heard any negative feedback. So I appreciate it, and I thank you. I'm trying to go about it the right way. I want to learn about it the right way and make sure that I'm doing it the right way. So, thank you. I appreciate it. Things have been a little bit of transition since we've moved, a little bit of struggle. I think it's gonna, 3 to 6 months, we're gonna pan out. But it's struggle nonetheless for business in Waunakee that we're trying to bring more services here to people. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any comments?
Are there separate covenants for the Arboretum Office Park that govern signage as well in this situation that are developers' covenants? Does Don know?
Yep. So I have had a brief discussion with this, with the attorney who represents Mr. Tierney. I think what he indicated to me was there aren't necessarily specific covenants that deal with signs, but rather architectural considerations, so that the operator of the office park does get involved in this process. And I think that's exactly what was indicated.
So the applicant will have to go through the developer as well.
Correct.
So that we're, I just don't want to see us inconsistent with covenants and then us approving something that is inconsistent. So the idea is whatever we do, hopefully it's worked out. What if it doesn't? What happens then?
Well, I mean, that's typically our practice. I mean, when we have covenants, we may place a condition or you have one of the standards of the conditional use permit that they have to make sure that they get approval from the architectural review committee for the covenants.
Joe?
Pretty well said.
Brian?
Definitely.
Chris? Okay, is there a motion?
Well, Chris, if,
Well,
hold on.
That was.
Yep.
If, it sounds like you're all in favor, which is great. What we'd like to do at the staff level is put together a document for you that lays out, a more formal approval process with restrictions in the background and details where these signs are allowed, so that we have a nice record going forward, what actually approved.
I would assume with the CUP nature that anybody else who would come with this would have to do the same process.
Correct.
Are you asking us to do that tonight?
So I'm asking you that, just direct staff to prepare a formal conditional use approval for your consideration at the next meeting.
All good?
And I'd like to know that what we do and the developer do, so we get that consistency and something.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Wes. Okay, number 4 on the list, public hearing, discussion, action on site plan for Main Street, Waunakee, LLC, T-Wall, in rezone of 201, 203, 205, 207, 209, and 211 West 2nd Street for R3D residential to C1D commercial.
I think the introduction is already, you've already made it, so I think we're in a position to hear a presentation from the applicant, and then we may have a quick staff summary following the public hearing that we can provide, at least some highlight of maybe some of the comments that were included in your packet.
Okay, so I think Representative.
Thank you for having us. This is my architect, Joe Lee, Terrence Wall, developer, T-Wall Enterprises. First, I just want to ask or specify the action we're requesting tonight. The action we are requesting is that you approve, recommend to the village board approval of our proposed development here tonight. We're going to first review the changes that we've made in the development since conceptual reviews with you. and we'll take some questions from you afterwards if you have questions. And we'll go through some changes first to get started here. I'd also like to, Joe, your hands over. There's a stack of letters of support that I want to submit to you for the record. I apologize, I misplaced my glasses, so if I'm squinting, it's because I don't have my glasses on. You see the red dot? Okay, so first of all,
So we could see your watching everyone's view.
So first of all, I just want to list off the number of changes we made, and we can talk about the specifics of the plan. We originally came in here with a 4-story concept we talked to you about on Main Street, and we have reduced that to 3 stories. So we comply with your height requirements. We have came in here with something around 100 and, what was it, Joe, 175 or 80 or 188 apartment units. We are at either 123 or 108, depending on which alternative you choose. The smaller number of units, 108, includes some commercial space on Main Street, and the larger number of units, 123, does not have commercial space on Main Street. We have brought you 2 design alternatives tonight, so that you could choose between those 2 alternatives when you take action, as far as recommending one or the other, or you can leave it up to the village board. We originally had 3 phases. If you recall, we had Main Street as phase 1, and then we had 2nd Street as phase 2 and phase 3. We have come to you after listening to the neighbors and to the planning commission, the village board, etc., and refined that down to 2 phases, with 2nd Street being the first phase and Main Street being the second phase. And that has to do with buffering construction from the residential, and in talking to neighbors in particular, that seemed like a good idea to change the phasing. Our request also tonight for rezoning includes, for the record, that we will de-restrict commercial uses on the 2nd Street side of our property, so that commercial uses would not be allowed on the 2nd Street side under the zoning. We can talk about that later. Your comp plan does allow some commercial uses on 2nd Street. So with that, just illustrating some of the big changes we made, we also have gone through a lengthy process of having a number of neighborhood meetings and community meetings, reaching out. We reached out to the Rotary Club, we reached out to the Chamber, we reached out to different organizations, we reached out to businesses, to residents and neighbors, property owners, etc. Done an extensive outreach program and have listened to a lot of people. We can't accommodate all the requests that we've received, but I think hopefully you'll agree that we've done a good job of trying to address many of the concerns, and especially the big ones, so that this is an acceptable proposal. So let's look at the specifics. This first rendering is the 2nd Street side, and know that there's a couple of new planning commission members, so I'm going to speak as if you're all new, in fairness to those newer members. The original proposal was more of a traditional apartment building looking type building. We have designed this to look like single-family homes. They're connected in the back, so you have a single-family home pod, I'll call it. We had 1 unit here on the corner per floor. This pod has 2 units in the pod on each floor, except the top floor. And so the building goes back in, and so when you're driving along the street, what you're seeing are basically single-family homes. These dimensions and sizing and the gables very much mimic and mirror other homes in the neighborhood. You'll find in other homes there are gables, there are front porches, there's all kinds of different applications in terms of window designs, etc., in the gables for the upper floor of those homes. So you have homes that are very similar to this, and that's how we came up with this design. We thought Joe his team did a really good job of that. Next slide. Who's actually changing the slides? Oh, there. Okay. Thank you. This is a revised Main Street proposal. So you could, Planning Commission and the board have given us some feedback on a couple of the Main Street design alternatives we had presented. We heard that feedback. We took off the 4th floor. We reduced the height here at the corner. You'll recall there was like a more of a glass facade here, going up taller, larger windows. We have modified that based on what we heard from you, and we brought in this design. So this has the alternative A, which is the individual storefronts. This is very much like some of the buildings on the street, bicycle shop down here in the corner, and other traditional Main Street buildings in Waunakee. So this is a sort of more of a commercial look, even though obviously the second and third floor apartments, the first floor has an alternative of being either commercial space that we talked to you about, or basically our own fitness center, our own community room, our own leasing office in the front here along Main Street. So you could choose in terms of the design alternative, but you can also choose within that design alternative, do you want to approve allowing us to have the commercial space on the first floor? And if we get the tenant that we're talking to, and then if we don't, we can proceed with the alternative B, which is the not having the big commercial space on the first floor, just having the community room, the fitness center, the leasing office. So both designs that we present you accommodates both of those alternatives. So you could choose to say, yeah, we really want that commercial space, we don't want you to do the other, or no, we don't want that commercial space, stick with the other. So you can give us the choice, or you can give us the choice down the road. So you can do it tonight, or you can do it in the future by saying, if you get that tenant, great, you can do it. If you don't, then go with the other design. Next slide. This is the alternative for Main Street. So when we were here, we received feedback in terms of from neighbors and others that we should look at a design alternative that is more residential looking on Main Street. So this is very much residential looking. You have some windows here that go down to the ground level a little bit more because of the leasing office. We have a little fitness center, community room. We do have the commercial tenant here that will accommodate that. But this is very much residential looking. Balconies, second floor, gables with the window inside. We chose to go with 2 color scheme. And the reason for that is instead of making 4 different color schemes, we got a little too busy having 4 different colors on the front of the facade. So I think it looks better to have the 2 and they're complementary to each other with the white trim. So this is very residential looking. Keep in mind, if you've driven down Main Street, you look directly across the block here, there are some homes, right, single-family homes that may be rented actually, or they can be owner-occupied. But there's also commercial buildings directly across this part of our site, down the corner. Further down, down here at the bicycle store across from there, the commercial building. So it's a mix in there. Remember, we don't go all the way down. We have a couple lots here we don't own or control, and then we have the bicycle lot, which we provide extra parking for our development. Next slide. This is the site plan. Over here on the right is a building the bicycle store and providing some extra surface parking. Again, the second street here would be phase 1. So we get that done. We do the whole thing at once, so we get it done, get out of there, and provide the least amount of construction during construction as possible. Then come back to phase 2. And here on Main Street, we have a beautiful courtyard deck here and an outdoor courtyard for the residents. It's a beautiful open space, clustered, so the residents can use that. We did say that we could make the pool available to residents adjacent, proximity for a very small nominal fee for the summer. If they want to use that pool, we'd be open to doing that, and we said we'd be happy to do that. Entrance is through, the drive entrance is through a ramp down here, the alleyway. We did look at coming in off of West Street, but it's too steep, so the best alternative is come down through the alleyway. Next slide. Underneath is a large parking garage, so we have a tremendous number of parking spaces, elevator, emergency stairs, etc. We put in 3 elevators, one at sort of each corner, so residents don't have to walk too far to get to an elevator. We have some storage rooms also. We also have bicycle parking, quite a lot of bike parking in the garage as well. Next slide. This is just, I'm not going to go into detail, this is a sample of the first floor. This one is the alternative where we have our community room, fitness center, leasing office here up against Main Street. Okay? And when you walk in the door, you can see right through to the pool deck area, hot tub, little fire pit, gas fire pit, etc. So that's one alternative. And then we should come back to the next alternative. Go ahead to the next slide. This one is the one that has the commercial space that we end up signing a lease with the tenant who's interested in this space. They would take this whole space and they would have direct entrance off Main Street. And there's a way for some of their customers to want their employees to park underground and they can come through the elevator. So our Main Street, our street entrance here is at the corner. The other alternative is down here, our lobby, and we have our community room and leasing office in that area along here. Now, these are commercial buildings across the street right here, if you recall. So, next slide. So this is just a layout of the units. You can go to the next slide. Second floor, third floor, second floor, option 1. Go to the next slide. Next slide, go to the next slide. Same thing for the next. So this one is the only difference here is now we're, it's the same, it's the exact same plan, but it can show that we can do it with the residential facade. So we can do the same plans, the same alternatives. So we're just showing that too. Next slide. Next slide. That's the third floor. Next slide. Yeah. These are just two-dimensional views. You can go to the next slide. This is the pool deck side. Next slide. Fortunately, I have a copy of this in my hand, because I can't read that from here. I just wanted to highlight a couple things on your comp plan. Your comp plan in this area calls for community residential planning area. Specifically requires us to have a single concept master plan for the entire ownership. Interestingly enough, your comp plan allows for neighborhood commercial uses. And you'll notice that we're only asking for rezoning of the 2nd Street's half of the block. We're not asking you for rezoning of the Main Street because we don't need that. We could build apartments there today. So the 2nd Street side of your comp plan allows limited commercial uses. We're not proposing that. It also allows live-work units. It also allows limited professional offices and services, including daycare and others. We're not proposing that, but I'm just pointing out that it does allow that. Your comp plan encourages mixed housing types and levels of affordability. And that's what we're providing. We're providing a different housing type than what you see across the street from us. Within our development, we have studios, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, so we have a mix of housing types and housing affordability levels. So we're complying with your comp plan on that. So I'm not going to go into all details, but just highlighted that we do comply. We went through point by point on the comp plan. We do comply with your comp plan very precisely, in fact. So. In conclusion, I just want to ask you to support a recommendation of approval to the village board, where we would go and have a hearing there. And that, well, I understand you are going to get public input. You know, your charge as a planning commission is to follow your comp plan, follow your ordinances. It's there to give you guidance for approval, so you can do that. And I understand you're getting public input, but an individual opinion doesn't hold legal sway. What matters is your plans. Are we complying with your plans, which we are. So I'm going to open it up for questions. And Joe's here also if you have more detailed architectural design questions that I can't answer. Thank you.
Okay, Planning Commissioner, any questions, Mr. Walton?
I guess there's just one quick comment. I know you point out some consistencies with the comp plan. Have you seen any information from our staff about the inconsistencies with the comp plan?
We've read a letter from a consultant that was hired. Is that what you're referencing?
Yes.
A letter from NSA. Yes, we did read that.
Okay.
I would note that it is inaccurate, just so you're aware for the record. That letter did not review this application or this plan, just so you're aware.
Questions, Terrence, did you guys go to the fire department and make sure that, two concerns, one closing one side of the alley with one entrance? I know that there was a very major concern by the fire district in Waunakee over neighborhoods that only had one way in and out in case that got blocked and they couldn't get in for emergency. And I know you need to get the fire trucks in the middle if somebody's on a balcony in the middle. Ladder, I don't know, right? I know they back up and can they get in and?
So we haven't consulted directly with the fire department yet. That would be something that's done after approval. We get a letter of conditions from the village that we would then go and have the plans reviewed by the individual departments, and then we make sure they comply with the fire code and the building code. Generally speaking, I can tell you, having dealt with enough fire departments, for 30 years, they don't drive their trucks in between buildings. They won't drive their trucks in between buildings because of the risk that they could get caught on fire or whatever. They like to keep those trucks outside. This is a sprinkler building, so it's fully sprinklered, and it's only 2 to 3 stories. There's emergency exiting in multiple locations, and fire protected, enclosed, secured stairs. This, when you say driving neighborhood, just to be clear, this is the block, so it's within the same block. It's not that they're driving into the neighborhood, it's within the block itself. So I think we comply, like Joe, you're the expert.
Correct, and there's street access all the way around for public access. So, many areas that would comply with all.
And the second question, I noticed the service parking lot on Main Street where the bike shop is. Why do you have that? That's kind of unusual.
Yes, because the village was indicating to us and that you wanted, the village, doesn't say you, I'm sorry. The village has a requirement for parking needs. We don't need it, frankly. We know exactly how much parking we need, which is about a 1.0 or 1.1 parking ratio, based on the experience we've had for 30 years in the number of parking spaces with all of our different developments. But you have a village code, you have a village parking need, so we wanted to reassure you that there's additional parking, surface parking available, and that's going to be at that location. We would also be willing to make that available to the public if they wish to park their shop on Main Street somewhere.
So the ratio of parking that you feel you normally need, because I know you've done a lot of projects, has there ever been some place where we don't have mass transit? Because we have no other means of transportation but
Yes, we have developed in many locations without mass transit. The world's changing. I mean, as you know, many of the millennials, a very high percentage, historically, of millennials don't have cars. Many are using Uber, and you look at the national statistics, you're seeing numbers like 15-20% of own cars, they use bikes, they use buses, they walk, use Uber, right, Lyft. It's just a different generation, different world. We'll have a mix of demographic profiles within our building, but we know from our experience from all the apartments we have exactly what that, we keep counts, right? We know how many are needed for each building. So we typically find it's 0.9 to 1.0 to 1.1. And when you go to some of the communities, some of their parking ordinances are older, sort of written in the era when they thought everybody needed 2 cars. You go to the city of Madison and it's the opposite. You know, they want to minimize parking. They want to encourage people to ride a bike or take a bus or walk. So they actually discourage you from having too much parking. So every community is different. What we're trying to do is address your community's needs and your interests as a community in having enough parking. And also that service lot doubles as an opportunity for the public to have some additional parking on Main Street.
Any other planning commission? Terrence, did you want the letters that you gave read?
No, it's okay. You can
The ones that are...
you just pass them around. It's fine. That take too long. Thank you, though.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, then I'm going to open up the public hearing, and to start the public hearing, I'm going to read from people who submitted to start with, and then we'll take people that said they'd like to speak. Is there anybody who didn't turn in something that they wanted to speak to? Going once, twice? Okay. So from Ted Cash, 306 South Street, he's opposed. Barb Cash, 306 South Street, opposed. Nancy Keller, 502 Rupert Road, Waunakee. She's opposed. And Vic, take a straw vote tonight. Dorothy Lang, 704 West Street. She's opposed. John Webster, 204 West 3rd Street, opposed. Sue Stotts, Kirkwood Drive in Waunakee. The village strives to unite the community. This developer, T-Wall, is dividing the community and neighbors. Why can't the developer make closed zones to the village instead of expecting the village to change to please him? And she's opposed. Lori Curry, 5311 Shilton Lane, Waunakee. I'm a lifelong Westport resident and opposed to this rezone. This affects us in the township as well, also. Sam Kaufman, 908 Turnberry Drive, is opposed. Young people will not want to return to Waunakee if this building is constructed. Keep the small town feel. Paul J. Bernard, 106 6th Street. Do not rezone residential homes on 2nd Street to commercial property, opposed. Wayne Hurlbus and Rita Federer, 311 Fairview Circle. Do not rezone. We wish to preserve the downtown area as residential property. Joanne Buchanan Browns, 104 West 2nd Street, Waunakee. As opposed, I'm opposed to rezoning for commercial use in a big apartment complex that would change the friendly hometown neighborhood atmosphere of Waunakee to a metro like some of the towns around, and are very concerned about traffic that would be even worse than it is now. Also, the historical parts of our town are in danger of being destroyed. Melissa Ziegler, 101 West 3rd Street, is opposed. I feel there's so much traffic on 3rd Street by church where we live, and people run the three-way stop at all times. We have children and elderly crossing, safety issue, and more people. Connie Clifford Coates, 210 South Street, opposed. I feel rezoning will be taking away a lot of the heritage and history of Waunakee. There's enough traffic with the church, schools, and daycares. Yeah, large apartments would be overwhelming to this section of town. History is here. Nate J. Clifford, 101 West 3rd Street, Waunakee, Wisconsin, is opposed. I feel there will be too much traffic and people. Also feel apartments will not look good on this side of the downtown. Nancy Wales, 101 Fifth Street, Waunakee, is opposed. Barb Adler, 201 West 3rd, Waunakee, is opposed. Opposed rezoning in all the two-wall building. These were a couple. Elaine Loffler, 301 West Main Street, is opposed. If I am opposed to the building, T-Wall project on West Main Street and rezoning of the 200 block of West 2nd Street for commercial use. Okay, these were emailed in then. This is from Mary Noel Becker. Although I am unable to attend the meeting this evening, the proposed rezoning and development proposed for the 200 block of West Main Street and 2nd Street is probably more complicated than how I perceive it, but I see the party that benefits is the developer and only the developer. I do not see the need for this project. Today I see empty retail space along Main Street. I am not aware of housing shortage in Waunakee, at least not the type of housing this project represents. I rent the 2nd floor of the house at 211 West 2nd Street. It's a quiet neighborhood. The people living on the south side of 2nd Street will certainly be negatively impacted by this project. I cross Main Street several times a day on foot as I go to and from work. At certain times of the day, it can be a challenge, and this project would create a micro area of greatly increased traffic with that many people living in that concentrated area. When I look at the pros and cons and the people impacted negatively and positively, I see the developer on the positive side and the rest of us and the entity of Waunakee on the negative. Thank you. Next we have Laura Blakesley, 217 6th Street. Please consider the additional traffic that another apartment building on Main Street will present for the rest of the community is already congested many times during the day. Thank you. Next we have Greg and Vivian Zelinka, 210 4th Street, Waunakee. We would like to voice our strong opposition to the rezoning of 2nd Street. We are not in support of the large apartment complex as proposed. It will certainly stress the traffic flow in our area, which has been very adversely affected by the roundabout. During rush traffic, our wait times to turn on Main or Century Avenue are so long we either plan not to leave our home or take a circuitous route to find a way out. It's also a dramatically changed the residential feel of the neighborhood. Please put the brakes on this large complex. Next we have Richard Smith's, 207 West Main Street. Entirely too large, too enterprise is rezoned, I hope no for this project. Next we have Bob and Kathy Neeson, 104 6th Street. This is to inform you that we do not feel that we need a 4-story apartment building in the 2nd block of Main Street. We are hoping that T-Wall will not be allowed to build this complex. Let Waunakee have housing that is already there. Great. Very good. Let Waunakee have housing that is already there to create the residents coming into our town. Our vote is no. Next we have John and Wendy Licky, 21 Fairview Trail, Waunakee, Wisconsin. Waunakee has one major apartment complex with commercial space under construction on Main Street. I think it will take a while to digest that space, and traffic on Main Street is already ridiculous. I used to cross Main Street for my morning run, but no longer going to attempt to do so. Given the weight as well as the danger of anywhere but at a light, we no longer even attempt to turn left from the Northwest Street onto Main Street. It is not worth the wait. I do not think that Waunakee needs this additional large apartment commercial space complex at this point in time. I understand that it has far too many units for the space, and it would cause further chaos and traffic. I do not think this space should be rezoned at this time. Short second. Okay. Paul Stokes, 205 Baker Street, Waunakee, Wisconsin. As a resident of Waunakee, I am writing to support of the T-Wall project on the 200 block of West Main Street and West 2nd Street. I am requesting that the planning staff, planning commission, and village board members work with the developer, T-Wall Enterprise LLC, to come to an agreement that will allow and support the currently proposed development of the density. Thank you, Paul Stokes. Next, we have Chris Kern. He lives on 4th Street. Tool Enterprise. Having said that, if this request does get approved, I request an extensive traffic study conducted to fully understand the impact the proposed development would have in the area. It is difficult enough to navigate out of downtown Waunakee today, and would appreciate that reality not being made more difficult. Thank you. G. Miller, 202 West 3rd Street. I am strongly opposed to rezoning West 2nd Street, 201, 203, 205, 207, 209, 211, C1D commercial. Non-ample parking is supported. Already overcrowding traffic, remaining fish and West Streets, impaired access to emergency vehicles. This is residential, too close to a school zone. Please take these points into consideration. Thank you. Kay Keffer. My husband and I own 2 properties, one on South Street and Waunakee. I am currently at home and will be unable to attend the meeting on June 7th. I want to register my concern about this issue. I was at the previous meeting when Mr. Wall presented his plan. At that time, it was obvious the zoning rules would not allow Mr. Wall to continue with his proposal. I also distinctly remember you, Chris, indicating you were not in favor of this development for many reasons, at least being zoning restrictions. There were many other residents there who shared your concerns. I guess no does not mean no. It just means maybe. You'll change your mind if you keep reading. Sorry. You'll change your mind if I keep bad reading. I implore you not to approve any rezoning of this area that will result in the project that Mr. Wall wants to develop. This location is unacceptable for this large-scale development. I'm counting on you to make sure this does not happen. Meadow Fry, 404 East Berlin Avenue in Waunakee is opposed. New projects pertaining to housing need to be stopped until housing needs are determined. Specific goals pertaining to all types of housing need to be placed in the comprehensive plan. Housing needs have been cited in previous documents over the years, but never acted on. To make good, sound decisions pertaining to Waunakee's future, a comprehensive traffic study is to be done by an independent party studying all traffic patterns every day, all day, year round. We need plans that will avoid problems and consider all residents of Waunakee. Since once a project is built, it won't and can't be unbuilt. Florence Hillenbrand. Don't have an address.
15 Fairview Trail.
I believe that was 15 Fairview Trail. I do not want T-Wall to be able to build that large building. Keep it at R3D, single or 2-family residential, and do not change to C1 commercial. Next we have Mary Jo Coppernall, 209 West 2nd Street. As a resident of Waunakee, I'm ready to support of the T-Wall project on the 200 block of West Main and West 2nd Street. I'm requesting as a planning staff, planning commission, and village board member work with developer T-Wall Enterprises, LLC, to come to an agreement that will allow and support the current proposed development in density. I've got signed Norman Marion, I think it's Brewer. Regarding the rezoning request for West 2nd Street, I do not see a need to make this change. With the abundance of apartments constructed and being constructed, it appears we have an adequate supply for the present time. It will distract from our image as a welcoming community. We've lived here 13 years, after growing up in Cross Plains area on a farm, then living in Wisconsin Rapids for 40 years. We came to Waunakee as a welcoming community with all we need very accessible. Thanks for your consideration. Bless you. Rollo Wells. I don't have an address, but we'll see if it comes up here. I'm emailing this to you since I will not be able to make it to the meeting on Thursday. I am opposed to the apartment complex at 2nd Street. I do not want this, and I know others do not either. I'm doing this so that I can have my voice heard. I've lived in Waunakee for 5 years now, and I have to say it's been a wonderful experience. I absolutely love living here due to a small stature, friendly residents, and a wonderful place to live. I've always loved small towns, and this is one of the reasons I love here. I'm sad to see what is happening here in Waunakee. Farmland is being destroyed so that we can have houses to live in, but what good is a house if we have nothing to eat since farming has seemed to decrease over the years? I'm sad to see that land, the land that we supposedly love and cherish, to just up and be demolished. So I've been informed by 2 residents now that have stopped and talked with me and let me know that what was going on. I currently live on Main Street in Waunakee, and I love it, but I'm sad to learn that a street that has been residential forever, that would be turned into a huge apartment complex. I do not want like my small town and I want it to stay this way. Big companies and corporations have no business in our town, trying to turn residential into commercial inside the city, especially a whole block. I was opposed to that new apartment complex that was built a couple of years ago. It saddens me to see them destroy the houses and block across the creek road. We don't need more apartments, we need more houses in the downtown area. If this proposal goes through, I will not stay in Waunakee. I will move and find a different town to live in. I live here for a small town charm and actually still being a small town. I grew up in Watertown and Exonia and love living in those places. Should I read what I read to talk about that? Okay, the rest of this is about Ivy, so I'll come back to that.
I would just note for the plan commission members that there were 12 letters that were filed with us for the record from Mr. Wall in support of the proposal.
Did everybody out there hear that?
No. Sorry. 12 letters were filed with the plan commission by Mr. Wall in support of the proposal. So I just want to make the plan commissioners aware.
Could we have the addresses of the individuals?
Sorry, you want me to do it? You're not ready.
I would say just read the address.
Name and address.
Okay, so Wanda Anderson, 300 4th Street, Waunakee, Wisconsin. All right, I might murder this and I apologize right up front. Dr. Hong Zhang, Acuconda, LLC. But I'm not sure where. Okay, Jason Marty, 401k investment professionals. I don't have an address. I don't have an address on this. John Chen, China Walk in Waunakee. Jeffrey Stotts. Waunakee neighbor, he says. Van Nutt, who's executive director of Middleton Chamber of Commerce.
Where's the address?
So folks, I need you to be, I understand what you're doing and I need you to be quiet so I can continue on, okay? If they have an address, I'm giving it. We have Van Nutt, as I said, executive director of Middleton Chamber of Commerce, 7427 Elmwood Drive, Middleton. Shelley Murphy from Blue La La. It's either Melanie or Mallory Monkey, Back in Action Chiropractic. Kathy Clemens, from Sweetly Floral. Marlo Hilders, Nails by Marlo. Wanda Anderson, 300 4th Street. Bridget Arnold, 621 Meadowbrook, Waunakee. One second, please. Okay, these are the people that wish to speak, so as I call you, if you could please come up onto the microphone. And should I read your name, address first? Okay. So the first person I have is Steph Ryan, 215 West Main Street. And let me give the parameters quick on this. For public comment, when you're speaking, is 3 minutes. Basically, we'll be keeping track of that. When you get to 30 seconds, if you have 30 seconds left, she'll let you know, okay?
Steph Moran, 215 West Main. I just wanted to mention that these neighborhood meetings that Terry Wall has been having, all of us at every meeting, 100% of the residents, the neighbors, are opposed. So, you know, he's talking about talking with the neighbors. Well, all of these meetings, all of us are opposed. So, I just wanted to address that. And I just thought it was funny and interesting at a meeting that we had with one of his employees at Rex's Innkeeper, the meeting where he had residents from 6 to 7 p.m. from Main Street and then 7 and 8 p.m. for the Second Street residents. It just was very odd to us, and we just wondered why he split us up. You know, maybe there were too many people opposed to it or something, and he didn't want that, not sure. But in this meeting that we had, his employee, we started talking about traffic. And Carrie even mentioned it in a letter to the Tribune, because he joked and said, like, what's a couple hundred cars more every day? This guy, you know, like, yeah, because it doesn't matter to him. He doesn't try to cross the street every day, you know, going to the grocery store or going to the post office or whatever. So traffic is just a huge concern of ours. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mary Heinebecker. 306 West 3rd Street in Waunakee.
Hi, I'm Mary Heinebecker. I'm opposed to the rezone. There are many reasons why that are too many to list in our comprehensive plan, why that building doesn't fit in the section where he wants to put it. First off, those homes are all starter homes, which is talked about that we need more starter homes in Waunakee. Somebody come in and redevelop them and make them look newer looking. The comprehensive plan discusses keeping the residential areas in the central district intact. A rezone to C1D from R3D would set Central Street up for any type of commercial business to go into where those homes are now. Concern for safety, the addition of another 250 to 300 cars. I know Terry seems to think that people won't have more than one car. That just doesn't happen in Waunakee. I have a millennial son who has a car, a motorcycle, and a Bronco. And his girlfriend has a car, and they have a one-bedroom apartment here in town. So I'm not sure where he gets his information from, but there's always more than one car involved. I can only imagine that all those cars would be coming into the residential neighborhood looking for a way to get into Madison, especially if a left turn would be necessary onto Main Street. It'd be impossible to get off in West or Fish and turn left onto Main Street during the busy time. Already trying to cross Main Street in this area for a pedestrian is difficult at best. Trying to cross at O'Malley in Main Street in a clearly marked crosswalk is extremely difficult. Cars just do not stop coming out of the roundabout. The building suggested for the area has no setbacks. This is a requirement of the comprehensive plan. I see he says he's toned it down from 4 stories to 3 stories, but even that front facade that they have right now with the straight up and down buildings doesn't fit with the houses that are across the street from it. They're small homes, they're not even taller homes, most of them aren't across the street. And there's no green space at all. I also believe that there needs to be a bigger picture of how many districts are flowing into our schools. I just read that Heritage is in need of adding a kindergarten teacher for the fall. I think a study needs to happen of all the building taking place that is flowing students into our school district and how this is going to affect all the taxpayers. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Philippe Webster, 204 West 3rd Street, Waunakee, as opposed.
Thank you. First of all, we have a state statute that provides that zoning regulations like this, quote, shall be made in accordance with the comprehensive plan, and also, quote, shall be made with reasonable consideration, among other things, of the character of the district and its peculiar suitability for particular uses, and with a view of conserving the value of buildings. So, as Terrence was saying, we need to look at the comprehensive plan. So our comprehensive plan includes a statement about preservation and rehabilitation of the existing stock of affordable housing. It also states to celebrate and preserve local history and culture, and working with property owners to protect and restore historical structures. The Planning Commission is then tasked in the action to explore development of housing rehabilitation programs to help property owners maintain and rehabilitate older housing stock, particularly in the central portion of the village, identifying and taking inventory and preserving historic sites and adopting design guidelines, the traditional downtown, to preserve the historic character and scale. So all those are elements that relate to this in the comprehensive plan. Furthermore, we also have the Central Business District Plan that was designed in 2003. And it specifically identifies these 6 houses on 2nd Street, calling them the historic neighborhood rehabilitation, and notes that the cost of housing and rent in Waunakee has considerably increased and made it difficult for populations to find housing, like teachers, in our community. And sadly, that statement 15 years later is still true. In that plan, also, it states that the historic neighborhood south of Main Street represents an opportunity to encourage more home ownership with the conversion of rental properties back into single-family and owner-occupied housing. And it notes that stabilizing and maintaining the character of historic neighborhoods close to this district is a critical component of revitalizing, and recommends that the TIF district should include the creation of loan and grant programs that facilitate housing improvements. So all of those relate to our plans. So approving this rezoning request would go against the intent of our state statute regarding zoning regulations, completely undermine the action of the Planning Commission, and go against our stated long-term plans for our downtown district of Waunakee.
Thank you. Maria Pat, 1000 Wexford Drive, and she's undecided. Depends.
I'm undecided only in that I would like to see 2 proposed projects that have come before members of this community flip-flopped. I could see more of an interest if Mr. Tierney would be interested in taking over the renovation of the more smaller houses that are on 2nd Street, redoing that area, giving those homeowners the opportunity to sell their properties, move on to do what they need to do, refurbish and redo all of that in there, and let Mr. Wall look at the area around Woodland and Highway Q for something larger like this. I think the scale and the scope of this project, though I appreciate the fact that he has really downscaled it a lot, is still too big for Main Street. And I would like to just see different open thinking of different options. And maybe with Mr. Tierney's great love of the community, he could look at some things that already exist and make them better, rather than always building something brand new that is like another kind of a spoke in a wheel way out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mike Moore, 923 Lexington Way. who's opposed, would like to speak?
Thank you. I ask you to support the staff recommendation to deny the zoning request. This rezone would be inconsistent with the desired future uses as identified in Chapter 5 of our comprehensive plan. These lots are designated to remain community residential and not commercial or business district, as would be reflected by a change to C1D. While a comprehensive plan allows for the redevelopment in the commercial downtown district, these properties fall outside our designated commercial areas as permitted in the plan. The plan addresses future transition of properties from residential to commercial, but specifically references residential properties with direct frontage on Main Street. It also acknowledges existing properties zoned C1D without direct frontage on Main Street, and highlights those areas for redevelopment for non-commercial uses such as multifamily housing. Nowhere does it indicate that the properties adjacent to the commercial district that are zoned residential should be rezoned to C1D for the purposes of redevelopment. Additionally, we have policies in the comprehensive plan for handling the houses along Main Street and the transition blocks. That would include the 200 block of West Main. These policies are, number one, allow the use to change from residential to commercial, but retain the character and scale of the existing structures. Number two, limit commercial uses to the uses permitted in the C1D zoning district. Number three, require parking to be located in the rear or side yards, preserving lawn in the front yards. These are the policies we have for residential properties directly on Main Street. How would one expect anything less restrictive for Second Street? In principle, this rezone would represent a dramatic shift in the boundary of our core commercial area, expanding into quiet residential neighborhoods with low-density single and two-family homes. There are no circumstances in the neighborhood to justify this rezone. The neighborhood hasn't changed to such a degree that it serves the public interest to encourage a redevelopment of that area. In fact, the neighborhood is already sought after by both individuals and families seeking affordable single-family homes. However, I understand the applicant has argued these homes are in such need of significant repair, and therefore they should just be demolished. I argue that this reason does not justify rezoning to commercial. If this argument is accepted, it would allow property owners who desire the windfall that might arise from being zoned commercial to allow their properties to fall into disuse and disrepair. It will encourage landlords to buy properties adjacent to the central business district and also let them fall into disrepair. We should not create such an incentive by accepting this argument from this applicant. It will lead to the deterioration of residential areas around the commercial downtown, and the commercial creep will continue south if this is allowed to take hold of this rezoning. This rezoning is simply not compatible with proposed future land uses and intensities contained in our comprehensive plan, and therefore should be denied. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mary Ellen Tierney, 317 West Main Street. She's opposed and would like to speak.
Just to give you a frame of reference, because I'm going to be talking about the original plat map in Waunakee from 1871, and it was done by George Fish, and I'm living in his house. It's the red brick house next door. All along, we've talked about preserving the historic downtown. Nobody's ever really defined that. So I thought it would be very helpful if we looked to the very first plat map in Waunakee, which was done in 1871. George Fish and Louis Baker were neighboring farmers, and they heard that the Baraboo Railroad wanted to come put a line through from Lodi to Madison. So they approached the railroad because there was another group of people who lived a little bit north of Waunakee who wanted Waunakee to be done there. So they approached the railroad and gave them right away through their farmland and paid them some money to locate where they did. And when that was accomplished, they platted Waunakee in 1871. I've given a copy of the plat map to the Plan Commission and also to the Village Board of Trustees, because that can be the very first footprint of what Waunakee is. And there were 12 blocks in the original plat. It started on Madison Street and ended on West Street, which includes our Second Street block in question. And on the north, it was stopped by the creek, and once across the railroad tracks on the west side were the boundaries. Now, Second Street is located in lot 5. And I looked at the map, and there were 12 blocks. Of that, Block 5, Block 6, Block 12, and Block 11 are the only blocks that have completely residential houses. And the northern boundary is the north side of 3rd Street. So, I think that it would be a tragedy to rezone one of the original residential blocks in Waunakee to commercial purposes. I also think that the only lots remaining should be protected in the future. And this is just the beginning footprint of historic Waunakee. There were many frequent additions to the plat over the years, and that shows how Waunakee grew and should be heeded when you're trying to decide what is historic Waunakee. The goal was to protect the history and charm. Well, this plat map should help protect the history, and the charm is not found in high-density urban-style buildings.
Thank you. Next, we have Carrie Arneson, 923 Lexington Way. She's opposed, would like to speak.
First, I want to thank you for having a public hearing on this item tonight. I understand it's not necessarily required, but I appreciate the opportunity to listen to opinion. Before I start my statement, I do want to say Terrence Wall is not quoting our current comprehensive plan. He was quoting the one adopted in June of 2003. I'm really familiar with the plan, and one of the things you had highlighted, I don't think are in the current plan, so maybe we'll cross-reference that. I enthusiastically support the staff recommendation to deny the request for zoning changes on the 2nd Street parcels. As you know, state law, planning law provides that zoning changes must be consistent with our comp plan, and our comp plan provides that when considering zoning changes, the village will include a review for consistency not only with the plan, but also our adopted ordinances, document the findings, and recommend whether to approve or deny. After reviewing our comp plan and adopted ordinances, I documented scores of inconsistencies, but will focus only on what I believe are the most salient among our ordinances. I believe the inconsistencies are apparent after asking yourselves just a few questions. Does the village intend for 2nd Street to become a special district for commercial use in the older portion of downtown? Do we intend for it to retain a mixture of business uses as part of the older downtown commercial district? According to our planning documents, the answers to both are no, but those descriptions are the stated intent of C1D zoning. Should this not alone be enough to deny this rezone request? It's not even the intent of the land use on 2nd Street by the applicant. Would you agree that the structure proposed for 2nd Street is a high-density residential development that's accessible to thoroughfare, shopping, and employment? If yes, then we must note that this is the stated intent of R5 multifamily housing per our ordinances, which allows for over 8 units. Should this not alone be enough to deny the rezone request? The building proposed aligns with the intent of R5 zoning, while not even meeting permitted uses in C1D. Are the 2nd Street parcels at the edge of a one-family residential neighborhood? Yes, so we must acknowledge in our ordinances, they specify the appropriate zoning for multifamily units located at the edges of 1 and 2 family residential neighborhoods. That's R4, which allows for buildings with no more than 8 units. Should this not alone be enough to deny the rezone request? If the applicant intends to build an R5 building, it cannot be located here for our ordinances. Our comprehensive plan states the development process will be clear and predictable for all participants. This applicant is requesting C1D zoning to build an R5 structure in an area appropriate for R4 at most, and for a use that's not even permitted in C1D. And I feel for you, because after reviewing it, I know I am left asking, what exactly is clear and predictable about this request? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Linda Ashmore, 114 South Street. She's opposed and would like to speak.
Thank you for having this public hearing. I am opposed to the rezone and to the T-Wall project. Many of the items I was going to speak about are already been touched on, and there's a lot of people here, so I won't repeat those. But I went through the comprehensive plan too, and had sent things into village board members and planning commissioners, noting the areas where this proposal does not comply with the comprehensive plan. So I'm going to talk about some other things. One of them is that the prohibited use of T1D are commercial uses. So Second Street could have taverns, could have backwards spot shops, gas stations. It doesn't fit. It's taking something commercial and dropping it in the middle of a 3-block neighborhood, taking that little block and saying, okay, that's going to be commercial. It just doesn't make any sense. One of the big concerns, as I talk to neighbors and people who talk to neighbors, I'm on the side of the street that the T-Wall project would be on, a block away. But the neighbors that are across the street on Main Street, as they talk to people behind them, in the blocks behind them, there's a real concern about residential, commercial creep into the residential areas. Because if this is allowed, then it's, well, look, there's a commercial district here, just across the street, we can make it commercial again. And so that's a major concern, and it doesn't match the comprehensive plan use for that area. Addressing a couple of things that Terry Wall talked about, he was saying that he's going to have a lot of places, parking spots for bikes. Anybody who lives near Main Street knows you don't really bike on Main Street. It's just not safe. It's hardly safe to drive on Main Street. So it might be a great idea, but the reality of Main Street is that the traffic is horrible, and adding 200 cars is not going to make it any better. And on Main Street, across from it, I don't know of any commercial buildings from where he's proposing for this whole concept. That directly across, I don't think there are any commercial buildings.
30 seconds.
The other thing I'd like to note is that those who are in support of it are pretty much the people who are selling. That's what happened when the district was created and the Second Street House were put back in. That meeting was all the sellers saying, we really support this project. As you see, most of the people here do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jerry Ashmore, same address. I think it's the same address, 114 South Street. Did I say it right, 114? 114, okay. Her handwriting is better, no offense.
I'm opposed to the project. I'm wondering why Terry Wall is still talking about anything over 100 units, because even if you did give him the zoning change to C1D, the density requirements for the multifamily housing allowed in C1D are really quite clear, and there wouldn't be anything over 100 units allowed on that if you follow the appropriate density ordinance. There's, in page 64 of the comprehensive plan, it talks about phased development so that projects are put in place over a period of time to manage the impact on the community. And we have had in the last few years, Madison, Maine come up with 79 units in it. Now Waunakee is under construction to bring in 101 units in that block. And so adding another 100 plus units in this block right at this time, it just seems like it's much too fast. There should be some very careful study after Cupdeek has gone in to see what the situation is involving traffic and safety on Main Street and such. And I'd like to kind of compare the two projects, the Cupdeek project and the T-Wall project, because you might look at them and say two large mixed-use projects, same. But in fact, if you look at the Hubby block, what's across the street from the Hubby block? It's mostly commercial. It's all commercial across Main Street. It's commercial. There's two houses across Water Street, is it? Across Madison Street, it's the other big project, Madison and Main, which is mixed use commercial. And going south across what will be the new Cross Street, there is the assisted living facility, and then some empty space that's flood control and such. So there's two residences across all the streets from the block of the Hubby project and a lot of commercial. Across the streets from the block that T-Wall wants to build on, across Main Street, there are in fact 6 houses all along the block across. The commercial stuff starts farther down the street. Across 2nd Street, there's another 6 houses. Across Fish Street, there are 2 houses and some commercial in the corner of Fish and Main. And then across West Street, there is the new duplex coming in. And then 2 commercial buildings there, one of them brand new at West and Main. And so it's all residential in that area. Altogether, there's 14 houses in a duplex across the street from that block. So it's a much different area. It's a much different character of block. And I think putting a big apartment building in there is really completely inappropriate for the neighborhood. There's also stuff in the plan about keeping trees. When I tried to do a quick count, I lost track of about 20 mature trees on that block, most of which would have to come down for this construction, possibly all.
Thank you. Next, we have Kevin Kearney, 210 West Main Street. He's opposed and would like to speak.
Thank you very much. My name is Kevin Kearney. I've been a 30-year-plus resident here, and I've owned a tax practice on Main Street for 20-plus years. These are great pictures up here. They look really nice, but I want to take you guys back in your mind's eye. We're going to go right out on Main Street right now, and we're going to look at the 200 block when it's all finished and done. So in your mind's eye, as you look right at that block, what is on the left-hand side? We have an 80-year-old building with a bike shop now. So that's going to get dropped, and the history there is gone, and what are we going to get? We're going to get a parking lot, okay? And what's going to be right next to that? We're going to have a house. So is there anything wrong with having a house there? Not really, but this is not a normal house, because this house was built on a half a lot, okay? So this house is about 24 feet wide, and it goes about 30 to 30 feet high, okay? So we're going to have a parking lot and a string beam sticking up there. Next to that, we're going to have another vacant lot. Then we're going to have a one-story place. And then on the west side of this place, we are going to have a 3-story monster in there, okay? It is going to be big, and it's going to disrupt that whole block. So it could look that way for 5, 10, 15 years. So think about that. It's going to be a mess, okay? So that's just that proposal. The other thing I'm concerned about is the access. Right now, behind the buildings, you have east access in the alleyway, west access, and to Main Street, right next to my building. Okay, so I have plenty of ways to get in and out. However, in the 20 years that I've been there have been times when I cannot leave my building. I cannot get out of that. There are 3 ways out. I can't get out because there might be a charter truck there, a TDS truck. There's businesses around there that may be blocking my other exit. So we're going from 3, where I had trouble getting out at times, to 1. And that's pretty serious. So when they just kind of blow off the fire department and stuff, I think there's a lot of issues there. So my last concern is, well, and that's for my employees, my staff, everybody who's there, and most importantly, my clients. And then lastly, I want to paint a picture of the individual who has talked to everybody in the community, had all the meetings, everything's going on. This wraparound is going right around my business, okay? There's nobody more impacted than me. I have never been contacted once. Never said, hey, we're having a meeting over here, we want to talk to you there. It's a big deal. So it's being painted with a broad brush that everybody in Waunakee has been, talked to, and that's not true. So, thank you.
Thank you. Nick? Okay, next we have Caleb Gotwald, 206 West 2nd Street. He's opposed and would like to speak.
First, thank you all for taking the time to review these and hear our comments on this. In the information packet that you guys were given, there was a petition presented that was signed by virtually all of the adjacent residences. My name was not on that. I chose not to sign that petition simply because of how it was presented to me and some of the language that was included on it. But I would like to make it perfectly clear that I am opposed to the rezone. I don't think it fits within the character of the neighborhood. I don't think that a density that this would provide for this specific development fits with the neighborhood. I would echo previous comments that rezoning this to a C1D zone would allow for any of the approved uses and open the door for any of the conditional uses, the vast majority of which would not be compatible with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Kevin Neese, 304 West Main Street. Would you like to speak?
Hi. A lot of things that I was going to say have already been said, so I'm not really going to say a whole lot. Maybe a couple observations. You know, people like progress, but they don't like change, right? So we're talking about a lot of change here tonight, but I think a lot of it is just being change that's for change's sake and not for progress's sake. One observation I want to make is all the letters you read, Chris, there was a vast majority of them were opposed, but there were two that were for the property. But it was very interesting to note that the wording in those two letters was quite similar. So it almost seemed like it was scripted. Just an observation on my part. I guess the big issue I have, I live on 304 West Main, 1 block off the traffic on Main Street. You guys have heard this all before. With this monstrosity that Kevin Carney referred to, the traffic isn't gonna, when they're gonna come in off Main, they're not gonna turn on West, they're gonna go down the street and turn on Fish. So you're gonna see either right or left on Fish Street. That's an uncontrolled intersection. What are we gonna do with that? You know, traffic is a mess on Main Street now. I see it twice a day. I have a hard time getting out of my house onto Main Street, and I have a garage that doesn't face Main. I have to go through the alleyways. It's just the traffic issue hasn't been thought about enough. People, millennials that you all talked about, yeah, you're right, they don't like cars if they live in San Francisco or Seattle or New York City. But this isn't that. This is Waunakee. Where are these people going to work? They're not going to work at Farm and Fleet, and Culver's isn't going to pay enough money for these people to live in the houses that he wants to build. So they're going to have cars. They're going to have to work in Madison or Sun Prairie. They got to go somewhere. 129 parking spots or 108 units is not going to be enough. The pressure that's going to be on the school system and on the emergency services. 108 units, how many people is that going to be? 200 plus? We have enough problems right now with emergency services and the police being able to satisfy the needs of the town that we have already. But we're just putting more pressure on services that we have out there that are strained right now.
30 seconds.
So I guess I oppose. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Lane Webster, 1012 Pasadena Parkway.
I wanted to talk about ID.
Thank you. Mary Jo Bell, 309 West 3rd Street. She's opposed. Would you like to speak?
Hi, I'm opposed. Like everyone else, most of the things have been said, but one thing is Fifth and West Streets are not designed for through traffic. The neighbors are afraid that because of the increased traffic that's going to be an issue. Basically, those streets do not allow for changes in geometry. For an engineer, they're only 36 feet wide and they can't be expanded. The other things that people haven't talked about maybe would be the traffic going to the high school. Some of the drivers are new and they're turning off these roads. Some kids are walking to school. I live in the neighborhood. I see people having issues now. I walk the streets basically every day, and I don't walk during rush hour. I wait until at least an hour, 2 hours later, and you still have a problem getting across the streets. Basically, the comprehensive plan says that the goal of transportation networks should offer safe and efficient access throughout the village. With the T-wall development, it's not going to be consistent with the stated objective that neighborhood streets will be safe, and that's the main concern I have. Everything else was said, so thank you.
Thank you. One quick question for Brian. Our village attorney just told me that I could do whatever I want.
Trump said the same thing.
So Kevin, was Kevin right? Kevin was right here. Kevin, the one thing you made a comment on was parking. Because it wasn't giving enough parking. Just to clarify, there's actually 190 parking spaces.
All right, I just
I just
saw.
want to make sure that was clear for the record.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Next we have Kathy Carney, 804 North Fairwood Drive, Waunakee. She's opposed and would like to speak.
Thank you. Just a little background. I was born and raised in Waunakee, and Kevin and I decided to raise our family here as well, so I'm a lifelong resident. And I have several concerns with the rezoning. And actually, I think it's kind of interesting that we have this little map up here, because that was one of the first things that I had, is when you look at the 200 block of West 2nd Street, it clearly is part of a larger residential neighborhood in the downtown Waunakee area. And that's also evidence when you look at the future land use plan that's in the comprehensive plan. That clearly, there's a pretty clear line where the C1 D runs all along Main Street. You get to 2nd Street, and that is the beginning of our community residential neighborhood. So I think R3D zoning is the right zoning for that 200 block of West 2nd Street. And anything other than that is inappropriate, and it really destroys the integrity of the neighborhood that we have here. Some of the other comments I had down here have already been hit on, so I'm going to kind of skip over those. There's been a little talk about that our focus should really be on restoring the homes on West 2nd Street. And I recall when the TID number 8 overlay was voted on, some of the rationale that was shared for including the homes on 2nd Street there was that it would give us the opportunity to maybe put together some grant programs for first-time home buyers to invest in this property. And that, another point that I want to tie to that is, I've been at different meetings over the last couple of months, and there's been a lot of talk about affordable housing in Waunakee. And I think we've really struggled with how are we going to add more affordable housing in Waunakee. You know, lot values are really high. So here we have affordable housing. We're trying to add more affordable housing, and are we going to take these away? When maybe we should be looking at restoring and renovating them. The other thing that I wanted to comment on, and Kevin kind of hit on this, I'm Kevin's wife, I just recently joined his tax practice, and in 3 minutes you don't have a lot of time to talk about your concerns, and he did mention access and how important access to our tax office is. We have 3 entrances right now. We have a lot of elderly clients that can't walk real far. I've been in the office where Kevin has met clients at the front door who are in wheelchairs, use walkers, and has helped them into the front of our building. So if our clients can't access our business, it could be really difficult for our business and difficult for our clients. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next we have John Hepner, 2585 University Avenue. I'm assuming it's either Middleton or Madison. Madison. In support.
John Huffner, Development Manager for T-Wall Enterprises. I just wanted to clarify that I did review the most up-to-date comprehensive plan, and the comparisons that I made to our development do match the up-to-date land use plan within that comprehensive plan. There was an amendment made in 2007, but then amended maps of the comprehensive plan. And from what I can tell, it did not change the map from the 2003 comprehensive plan to the 2007 comprehensive plan within our proposed site.
Thank you. Next we have Wanda Buckington? Buckingham? 311 West 2nd Street. Opposed would like to speak.
I live a block away from the proposed everything. I'm against rezoning it to commercial. It's gonna sound really silly, but I would like to have chickens at my house, but I can't have it because of the zoning issue. So I'm wondering, why should Seawall be any different? This is not a commercial area. This is a residential with family. The traffic is bad enough already. Parking on both sides and no alleyway access often due to new businesses on West Street right now. It's a narrow street, as Mary Jo pointed out. I've almost gotten clipped 3 times. We have kids there, we have dogs, we have, it's residential. Basically, why so big? Affordable housing, we're going to be, we live in an older home, we're trying to fix it up as fast as we can. I actually encourage anyone who does not live in the neighborhood to just do a drive-by. And you'll kind of see what I mean. Not kind of, but you'll see. What it's all about. This affects us and the Seawall and the Planning Commission. As a neighborhood, this is the original neighborhood. Not one of the new many communities with amenity and with extras and larger houses and things like that. It's a small original community. I love the alley. I hate to see the days that we can't go straight through an alley. You know, just for commute. The neighborhood is a residential family neighborhood. Most drive to jobs, myself included. I drive to Sunbury every day, and I'll tell you it's a mess right now. I took off early to come to the meeting. I left out to get earlier schedule. We need safe commute hours, and this will not happen if the plan approves the rezone. Again, thank you, and please take the drive-by. 100 less second, 200, and 300 to see what I mean. I just don't think it's going to fit. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Vicky Funsa, 2912 Marketplace Drive, Madison, Livingston? Madison. And she's in support. Would like to speak.
Thanks. I wasn't going to speak, but after hearing what I've heard tonight, I felt I needed to. I'm the commercial broker that's representing T-Wall on the project. I have talked with every homeowner on that block. I personally took it against me when Mr. Kearney said he didn't hear anything about this project. I have been in his office 3 to 4 times. I've talked with him on the phone. We negotiated an offer. We didn't get to a result due to couldn't agree on price, and we couldn't agree on who was going to take responsibility of a potential underground storage tank that was once a gas station lot. So we're still dealing with that. So there's things that have come up tonight that is not the truth. It's embellished, and frankly, it pissed me off. So I was here to straighten the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
You up for rebuttal? Can I do that?
No.
No? Sure?
Yes.
It's not relevant to the situation. So I'm going to say no.
No.
Edith Laufenberg.
It would be interesting.
I'm fine. Let Kevin have mine.
I can't do that. Edith, would you like to speak? 234 for your...
No, other than to say I'm opposed, which I put on.
Okay. Agnes Endress, 103 Northwest Street. Opposed? Would you like to speak, Agnes?
No.
Okay. It's John, 215 West Main Street, Moran. Moran, thank you. And as opposed, would like to speak.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I'd like to applaud all the citizens for coming out here today, doing their homework, and really, talking in very logical and very meaningful ways. Mr. Wall seems to think that it doesn't matter what one citizen has to say. Legally, he can do what he wants. So far, what I've seen from him is a little bit of condescending attitude disregarding citizens and public officials, basically. And mostly, we all have to remember he's out for profit. He doesn't really care about Waunakee. He has developments all over the place. Speaking of the history, my house is 90 years old. It's been in my wife's family for 70 years. Main Street was very, very much just, not built up. Waunakee was very small back then. I want to go back to, we've all lived through the Main Street reconstruction, the debate about the roundabouts, things like that. Main Street was going to be 4 lanes. From an engineering standpoint, probably a good choice. From a Waunakee standpoint, not a good choice. But the current situation, everybody's complaining about traffic because when one person wants to turn left on Main Street, everybody has to stop. That backs up everybody. So when you add all this new traffic in, then you're going to have that same problem magnified. Obviously, all these people are emotional. We want to talk, about the facts. And so, basically, I think Waunakee has been growing with Main Street. We've had growth along Main Street. But when you guys, I say you guys, but when Waunakee put all the money into redoing all the sidewalk and everything, they left out our neighborhood because it was all houses. They stopped right where the businesses stopped. It's all houses. I go outside, I look around, it's all houses. And so that kind of just says something about our block, our neighborhood, and we'd like to keep it that way, basically. I think Waunakee is growing all around us and downtown, but I think the call for us is to slow down, take a look, gather ourselves, and do a better job of planning this. Mr. Wall says I've been doing this for 30 years, and I'll talk to the fire department, they'll be okay. Things like that. Anecdotal evidence about the traffic, I can't say there's going to be so much traffic, it's going to be a problem, but those are things that need to be studied before we go ahead with something like this. Secondly, on West Street, we have a little construction of a duplex going on. They built a garage next to the old funeral home. People don't realize what it's like to live through that construction. They cut utilities through the road. They leave it wide open, gravel, potholes for months before they fill it in. There's trucks parked there every day, every night. There's a different situation for traffic every day. We lived through that down on Main Street where they rebuilt some of that. It is a nightmare. I'm sorry, did you say? Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we had an individual who couldn't be here this evening as well. They submitted. This is Peggy and John Courier, 415 Skyview Drive. We think we need to keep in mind, we think we need to keep in mind the long-range plan and the long-range goals for Waunakee. There's been a plan in place which adheres to the current ordinances to keep building heights and sizes in check. These ordinances also call for 79 or less apartments in the Hub Department building based on the size of the lot. This plan was put in place for a reason. The vision for Waunakee's growth is to keep its small village character and then not end up looking like a Middleton or Sun Prairie. We don't want large buildings and a big box store. Please do not change the zoning for the T-Wall development. We are in favor of another issue coming up. Okay, so that's everything I have. Did I miss anybody that put a paper in? That's why I'm asking.
I'm sorry, I don't have any orders, so
Yeah, I hope I just don't, I've written,
Mary, you gave ours to Lori Lambert. You gave ours to Lori Lambert.
and I've gotten all those from her, I don't know.
So-
You were out of the half sheet, so they had the long one. That's what-
So the half sheet, by the way, is just I typed it up and I thought they were all gonna be half sheets like the, I don't know, I thought I remembered them from the past. This is
Okay.
just a side.
Actually, let me just make sure. You might need to know where I'm sorry. I got them, sorry.
Can I just
That's
get
why I asked
one
the
for a
question.
second, because I don't know what I mean, I know what I wrote, but I don't know what I wrote. I'll give you that.
Okay. Sorry, everybody, I have others here on the corner, so I got them.
I had to get this because I made some observations since I wrote this at home. Who are you? I'll tell you in just a second. So I'm speaking for my husband Mike, and my name is Mary McNulty. We live at 203 West 2nd Street. We are for the rezoning. Obviously, I'm a little prejudiced here. I've been offered a good deal for my house, something that if I tried to sell my house this day, I wouldn't even get close to that. My husband and I are in, oh, by the way, how much time do I have so I can press my start button? I want to keep track. Pardon?
2.5 minutes left.
So anyway, I believe T-Wall's done a good job working with the village and the people's concerns in modifying the plans to meet the village plan. As much as you'd like to keep Waunakee as a small town, you can't stay that way to survive. Waunakee can still keep that small town feeling with this project. If I had money to throw away to remodel my home to current standards, I couldn't put it on the market for sale, nor for rent at affordable housing prices. I'd never be able to recoup the cost. It's absolutely no way. If you want affordable housing in Waunakee, why not require some of these people that are building all of these subdivisions to implement mixed housing and these expansions that will include affordable housing? That makes the neighborhoods more diverse, which is the direction the village should be heading towards. I heard things about preservation in the state statutes of the old historic houses. These houses are not designated by the state of Wisconsin in any way that they are historical. They are only historical because they're old. None of them you have to fit certain criteria. The other thing is, for the preservation, getting a grant, there isn't a single bank or facility that will give me a grant that will cover the costs of redoing my home without a deficit. Okay? So there's lots of things that I would like to say, but that's the way it is. And I'm a progressive person, so I love my old house, but it needs to go.
Thank you. Okay, Dennis Elk is opposed. Would you like to speak, Dennis?
Yeah, just have a question. I'm just thinking it takes a lot of man hours to the committee and to oppose this thing. Well, I for one am missing a rerun of Gilligan's Island. But what I'm trying to say is there an end to this thing? I mean, I can't tell you what to say or what to suggest, but say you suggest no, and the developer come back and say, well, I tweaked it, and now I can do this again, and now we've got to come back again, or is there a way to put the kibosh on that, or is there a certain, I mean, I don't want to silence anybody, but there's time. It takes time to do this, and I'm just wondering if anybody have an answer to that.
We'll probably get to that issue. I mean, we're going to have a discussion as to what the plan commission recommendation is on moving forward. Ultimately, this has to go, it's a rezoning request. It necessarily has to go to the village board. That will be the next step. I
I would say, let's see what the plan commission and the village board have to say on the rezoning request.
I mean, and can it come back, and then you've got to say it again, and then, you know, that kind of thing? Or
I think we'll probably be discussing this as soon as we're done with public hearing.
Okay.
That's
Thank
fair to
you.
say? Yeah. Okay, next we have James Cluck, 108 West 3rd Street. Is opposed, would like to speak.
Clock didn't start till I got up there, right? All right. Again, I want to thank everybody here for listening to all of this. It's making a longer evening, but, and I know while we don't have legal sway, as it was put, we're a community, and we live here together, and we want to be successful together. And when you think about our community, one of the amazing things is how successful it is. You've got wonderful parks. You've got a great school system, an award-winning school system. And what is the reason for that success? We've all established a plan and what we wanted to do to get here. And the thing is the trajectory of what Waunakee can be is amazing. There's open space, north, south, east, west, development on roads. It's just amazing what is going to be happening here, which means we have the choice. We don't have to make, we were told we had two decisions earlier, that we had to choose option A or option B. That's not the case. The option to us is making sure that it is the right choice. Because it's a developer's dream, quite frankly, for what is the potential here. And the concern I have is that our plan, our agreed upon, hard worked on plan is being chipped away by people who have interest to try and do and maximize their interest, which is fine on their part, but that's their interest. And so, you know, they talk about, well, we've already made adjustments, but if you look at the initial plan, 4-story, that was way outside of ideals to begin with. So making adjustments to say we're working with you, et cetera, has to start with the plan and working with the plan. I agree with some of the comments earlier that we need options, but it's not necessarily has to be these two. Time is on our side. We have a Hubby property going in. We can take the time, absorb. What does that mean? What does it mean for traffic? What does that mean for our schools? What does that mean for pedestrians and everybody around? And take the time and then make the next decision as far as what is the next step for the move. It doesn't have to be all at once. And as a matter of fact, there's a danger to trying to do it all at once. So again, we looked at some really wonderful pictures, and it said that these have the character of the houses. So they're houses, right? It looked like it, but remember, there's 88 dwelling units in that one picture in phase one. That's not the same as what we have in the current block. So it won't be the same feel, even though you can draw some pretty pictures to make it look like it. We have the time. We should stick with our plan. Don't let developers who say, you gotta do this now, chip away at those plans. We have incredible success, and let's keep it going that way. So thank you again, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to read this one because I'm not sure how to handle it. So this is from Matt, Paul, and Dixie, 1013 Eric Lane. They're undecided, but they don't want to speak. Are any of them here that would like to speak? Just for Matt, Paul, or Dixie right now. Anybody, are they here? Okay, move on. Larry Kipley. 5910, how long?
And you got me down as.
Supporting? I would like to speak.
Yeah, I'm going to decline to speak tonight, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, so he's declined to speak tonight. He appreciates the opportunity to do so.
Okay. And you got me down for the record first.
And I have him on the record as support.
Thank you.
Next we have Heather Cluck, 108 West 3rd Street. And she opposes and would like to speak.
I'm neither as tall or as eloquent as my husband, but I oppose also, we moved to Waunakee, and I know I mentioned this before, because of its character, its feel, its charm. We live in a home that's 101 years old, and more than that at this point. But anyway, we liked the old home, we like the old characteristics, the old feel of the neighborhood, and everybody gets along for the most part. We have good neighbors and would like to continue to build that community and putting more houses, 123 units, and that doesn't necessarily do that. The other thing that I love about Waunakee is that when I drive in off of 113, I see the water tower, and you get that small town feel again. I don't know that more apartment buildings in downtown give us more of that small town feel. The planning that we looked at, it discourages residential use on street level buildings, and that's one of the options that was presented by T-Wall. So we'd like to avoid that housing on Main Street, keep Main Street definitely business as a place, a destination for people to come to. And we're not really looking at that in these developments as the way that they're looking at the moment. And I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have John Highland, 107 West 2nd Street, and he is opposed and would like to speak.
Thank you very much. I'm one of those individuals that Mr. Wall told you who may have an opinion that doesn't hold legal sway. And I guess he's correct in that. There are house owners surrounding this rezone proposal that do. And they've almost to the whole hard portion voiced their opinion, and that's why a decision to rezone this by the board will require a supermajority. They've exercised the legal sway. It's actually Mr. Wall's job to persuade you here tonight. I'm not sure his presentation did it because he really didn't touch upon the rezoning, other than saying that the staff recommendation is incorrect and that they meet and are complying with the comprehensive plans. I think if you listen to the voices of the individuals affected by this who live nearby, who don't live nearby, who are concerned about the character, they're telling you that they're not persuaded by what he's doing. The comprehensive plan, which everybody should live by because time was spent figuring out what's best for this village and its growth and how do we accomplish that, that's telling you this isn't appropriate. And the rezoning law requires a supermajority if there's enough individuals affected directly, and they're telling you. So I hope you go with the staff recommendation. I think it is dead on as far as this side of his proposal, and let him propose what he wants to for Main Street because it doesn't require the rezoning that the law requires for this. I don't think you should feel persuaded by his presentation that it should be recommended to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Aisha Dahl. Hopefully I said that right. 102 West 3rd. She's opposed and would like to speak.
Yeah, person. That's them across the park. Miss Dale. I'm concerned about the high density with and added potential businesses, specifically to the safety. So I included the Waunakee Police Department gave me a printout that shows traffic incidences that have happened in that area from 2016 to 2018. And what I can tell you is that Main and South, I live right off of South Street, where you have the church and you have the elementary schools, and then going all the way down to the library and the high school. It's a very heavy traffic area. That had 6 accidents that happened during those years. And just at Main and West in those same times had 6 also. So what Main and West only, it is a kind of a direct shot from the high school. So you have lots of young drivers driving on those roads, which could increase that incidence, but adding more businesses and traffic to that area is really unsafe in my opinion, and concerning to me since my kids that we live on 3rd Street, they have friends on 2nd Street that they now are old enough to ride their bikes to, and they use the alleys and the sidewalks primarily to get to and from their friend's house on 2nd Street, which is just down the street from the fire station. I'm also concerned that the village hasn't done their own traffic study. From my knowledge, that T-Wall presented his own traffic study that was also done when my kids were home, which means they were not in school. And that is obviously easier to get out on all the streets when we don't have the parents taking their kids to and from the buses and people having to be home with their kids because they're not in school. My last comment that I wanted to make is the concern with the parking. I know that he has proposed lowering some of his density, but it's still well above what our comprehensive plan allows in our ordinances. And if he proposes 123 units and approximately 209 parking stalls, it's still less than 2 required per dwelling unit. So that's still not within our comprehensive plan and current ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Michael Schaefer, 201 West 2nd Street. He is in support, but doesn't want to speak. Next, we have Steve Ramish, 303 West 2nd Street. He's opposed. And the written comment, have you looked for land in other areas? Don't think the project fits the current neighborhood. Then we have Ann Helt, 214 Key Drive. Would like to speak?
I didn't plan on coming to speak, but I think you can hear me without the microphone. I don't know if you know who I am or not, but I used to be the village president of Waunakee for almost 10 years. And due to illness, I backed off. I wish I was here now. You guys got a big handful. What you're doing. I want to go and get 3 minutes. Anyway, as I sat here and listened to this, I only came to listen. And I thought, well, and I've heard a lot of good points. There was one made by Mr. Kearney over here that fit the bill. Look at that building, just like he said. There could be a better plan in there besides a great big building that may, 100 years from now, everybody hates along that street. We hate that building. Can't there be something planned in there for maybe other little housing development? I know it's pretty tough for you. I'm sorry about that. But also, Mr. Tierney, I've known you a long time. Now, why in the world don't you get with him and go out there and build one of them big buildings out there? We really don't need we really don't need that big building there. I can see something else planned there. It would be pretty nice as long as people were willing to go along with it. But I just don't feel it was necessary to have something like that. As far as the zoning and everything, it kind of looks at their habitat at one time. There's been so many different plans, I couldn't believe how many times it's changed. And also that fire department, if you never went with it, there's a lot of other things there too. There's a big water line and a sewer line there that's pretty old. And I don't know if this has all been looked into, but the traffic is the biggest problem. Okay, I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. 10 years in this role. I don't have almost 3, and I look at the true color of my hair. Used to be nice and brown. Next we have I think it's Elaine Schroeder. 309 6th Street. 309 6th Street, right? Yes. Okay. I'd like to speak.
Well, I'd like to say change is not always progress. I'm in corporate world. And believe me, bigger is not always better. Second of all, I'd like to say, as Mr. Wall said, excuse my voice, Madison. got plenty of problems. He may be bailing them out yet, in many ways. Now, Mr. Kearney, in his defense, many of my questions have been answered already. But I remember when Colossus was on Main Street. I remember when the cheese house was on Main Street. They backed the truck in there and tied them up, clear up to the stop sign. Okay, now we're gonna put a different kind of traffic in here. Well, Colossus didn't have parking, they had frontage. Now we have a restaurant there, they got parking back there. But you know, it got to be to the point with the citizens in this town, they wouldn't even stop into Mr. Colossus' place. They couldn't get back out on the highway. Do I want to stop at Mr. Kearney's house? Yes, he's got 3 other entrances, but don't force him into a situation where people can't come and go on Main Street. And you've got a nice Main Street down Century. You ever been to Watertown? Look at some of their famous old streets, big houses on them. Soon you take these bike paths on Century Street, and you're gonna have such heavy traffic. And Main Street, take the bike paths and make them into lanes. They're gonna be needed more for cars, because you're living in a rural town yet. And change may be made, but now is not the time to be looking at this project, I don't think. Mr. Wall had a great presentation the second time around, and I do think after the other things are built, we may come back, which we know we can come back many times, but let's see what happens. I live on 309 6th Street, and I can tell you, Fish Street and West Street
30 seconds.
will be very busy, and they are under construction on the Century West. And Fifth Street, where the school goes, we'll have cars coming off there, another 200 cars coming this way. And Waunakee should never, ever have an apartment less than 2 cars. We are a rural community. We don't want to be Madison. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, did I miss anybody? Did anybody put a form in? I don't want to miss anyone. Okay, and I'm going to close the public hearing and defer to Brian to start this up.
So what I'm going to do is try to kind of summarize some positions that village staff has, try to identify for the planning commission, I think the topics that they'll be addressing tonight are not addressing from our perspective. Obviously, it's a recommendation for staff. And then, you know, other folks at the table can answer questions or chime in as they want to. Obviously, all of us up here have been listening to all of the comments, whether they are made by the applicant or the public. We have I have polled everyone. I will tell you that our staff recommendation is still the recommendation that we have in the memo. We believe that the planning commission should make a recommendation to the village board to deny the rezoning request, and we will kind of provide some more detail about that as we have this discussion. One thing that I did want to identify is there is a petition in your packet. It ultimately relates to the vote that's going to be taken by the village board. It was put in your packet for informational reasons only. The village clerk has reviewed that petition, found that it is sufficient to trigger the statutory requirements of a supermajority vote when the rezoning actually gets to the village board. And the rezoning, no matter what you do tonight, the village board will be taking up the rezone position, I believe, at the July 2nd village board meeting. So I just wanted to give you some information about that petition. There is, what was submitted to us was a site plan and a rezoning request. And I believe the applicant touched on a couple of different alternatives with respect to the site plan. From village staff's perspective, we don't believe that it's appropriate for you to address the site plan tonight. As indicated in the staff memo that was prepared by Jason, we believe that the site plan, even if the rezoning request is granted by the village board, is still inconsistent with certain zoning requirements. And so I think that it would be more appropriate for the planning commission to address the site plan. First, let's see what the village board does with the rezoning request. If the rezoning request is approved, then we can sit down with the developer and have further discussions on the site plan. You've obviously heard a lot of comments tonight regarding the comprehensive plan. You have a memo prepared by Jason. I would tell you as an attorney, I believe that probably all of the comments that were made either by the applicant or by the public tonight with respect to the comprehensive plan are either completely accurate or have some accuracy to them. That is a large document. I promise you that I agree with Jason's memo. I believe that fundamentally the proposal is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. I would tell you that if you looked at the comprehensive plan, you would probably be able to find language within the document that would support the proposal. But many times a village is faced with this issue. You have a project that has been proposed, you have arguments that can be made in support of it, you can have arguments that can be made against it. Here, village staff's recommendation is that probably the most significant and poignant aspects of the comprehensive plan, the project is, at least the rezoning request is inconsistent with those points, and so our position is maintained. I would say, in addition to what your position is going to be on whether or not you want to take action on the site plan, and then you have a rezoning. If you were to conclude that you believe that the staff recommendation is accurate and that the site plan, the rezoning is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan, I do believe that there is value, if you believe so, to have an initial discussion on whether or not as a plan commission you would be open to the idea of amending the comprehensive plan for a project of this nature. And really what I'm pointing to here is I think Jason did a good job of summarizing his recommendation on page 3 of his memo, which is page 65 to 294 of your packet. And within that, he summarized why he believed that the rezoning should be denied. He also had a sentence there that said, the applicant may suggest an amendment to the land use designation in the comprehensive plan. But I would not support that amendment because I think it would lead to an undesirable expansion of the downtown commercial district. First here, but possibly on other similar blocks in the future also. And to the extent that he wants to, Jason can certainly comment on that. We do have a map, and I can tell you that at our technical staff meeting, we brought this map up. And it does, I think, create a picture that supports Jason's statement right there. Because if you look at the purple, that is the C1D. The yellow is the R3. And if the village were to decide to essentially bump back into 2nd Street, where the rezoning request is here for C1D, you also have at least 3 other spots, 2 on 2nd Street, 1 on the east side of the tracks, 1 on the west side of the tracks, and then you have some land north of Main Street, looks like Water Street, and by Fairview Court, I guess. In theory, if you are willing to rezone this land from R3 to C1D, there may be an argument to expand in those other areas, and I think that that's kind of the call that we're, as a staff, we're a little bit concerned about. And I think Jason hits on it in his memo, but I also think the map does a good job of illustrating that.
Okay, so I'm going to open it up to our plan commission members. Start with here. I'm here to go first.
I certainly would love to. I support wholeheartedly the village staff's recommendation to deny recommending the rezone to the village board for the reasons stated in Jason's memo, as well as what Brian just stated. To answer Brian's question about would we consider opening up the comprehensive plan to potentially change if we find that this is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan, I definitely would not be in favor of looking at changing the comprehensive plan for this area. I think the public did a great job of researching and coming to the meeting prepared to talk about the reasons they like what we got in our comprehensive plan, and I would not be in favor of changing land use of the comprehensive plan to allow for this to be compatible with the comprehensive
plan. Right.
I don't really have much beyond that to add. You look at a project like this, and like I said, I try not to just isolate it to any one line in the comprehensive plan or one element of zoning. I try to overlay all of those. And kind of to your point about comprehensive plan, where we can find maybe verbiage that does or doesn't support, or, what it would warrant this type of project. We look at it as a whole, look at how does the comprehensive plan relate to the zoning, relate to the proposed project as it is, and what I'm saying here, the two large purple right off to the back. And I don't see consistency with the comprehensive plan. Then on top of that, there's this request to change the zoning to try to allow the project. And then you throw in a community element, community support, community buy-in. And just out in the neighborhood, over the last couple of weeks, you don't hear it. And obviously the size of the room we're in and the number of speakers we have, I'm not feeling like support either. That would really warrant pushing down the road of modifying the comp plan or changing the zone. So that's a whole lot more than I was planning on saying, what I think is a fairly, in my mind, clear-cut, non-fit to the project and reason to support staff recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Our newest board member.
I also don't have much to say. I agree with both Pat and Brian. I hear the concerns, and I agree doesn't fit with the comp plan either.
Joe?
I think Pat and Brian covered it very well. One thing I will say is after seeing that this was on the agenda, I made a point of driving down 2nd Street, back into the traffic in that area. But it's really difficult to make a decision on any topic like this without really getting a feel for what that area looks like now, and trying to get a feel for what it may look like in the future. Having driven through there, I can't imagine anything other than kind of single-family residential that we've got there now.
I agree with everything that's been said. I know how much work has gone into the comprehensive plans in this community. The first one to the revision. The comp plan has to do with what the citizens believe, and that's why we put them together. I agree with the staff that it doesn't fit in this location, and I can't see it from any kind of go against all the work that was done for many years.
My comments in regards to this, pretty simple. I think that it's important for everybody in the room to recognize that there's a process that has to take place for everybody involved. Disappointing in some things as we've gone through this, with some things that have gone back and forth with people. I think our plan commission is doing a fabulous job. We have 2 members on here, as Mr. Walters indicated earlier, so they had to come up to speed pretty quickly on everything here. This is a complicated issue. Anytime you're talking about a comprehensive plan, you're having to consider all things that are going on here. I'm in agreement with Pat's recommendation that he said earlier. And I just think this is a difficult thing for the community to put this volume in that area right now. Our hubby project is there. Main and Madison Street is there. There is development down in that commercial corridor, and as I look at the map, I see purple all in that zone that we talked about, not residential. And I think this is a really, really good exercise for our community as well, because it engages people to be partaking in our government. And a lot of people have been quiet for many years, some for good, some for bad, I would say on that. But it's important that we go through the proper processes, which is what we're doing this evening. And that's where I'm pretty much at with this. Can I get my opinion on this? Pat, or whoever, would you like to make a motion? Or is that not what we're doing?
Chris, can I make a suggestion, because I think that there's the potential that we're going to have 3 separate motions for the commission.
Okay.
Kind of addressing the 3 different topics that we touched on there. So the first, I think, recommended motion would be motion to table action on the site plan until the village board takes action on the rezoning request. And as I mentioned before, if the village board approves the rezoning request, then I think that we're going to have to sit down with the developer and work through some of Jason's comments in his memo and some of the things that, quite table action on the site plan until the village board takes action on the zoning request.
We have a plan commission that would like to make that motion.
Make that motion.
Motion by Pat McGowan,
Sorry.
second by Brian Allen. Any other comments? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
So then, I think I heard everyone unanimously reach the conclusion that they support the staff recommendation to recommend to the village board to deny the rezoning request. And I've also heard some people, obviously, a number of references to the inconsistency with the comp plan as set forth in Jason's memo. I did hear Brian make a comment regarding certain things that the public has said. And there are certain statements that the public, I've heard some statements about whether or not what the public says has legal significance or not. Well, if they are touching on an aspect that is relevant for the rezoning, the points that they make are relevant to your determination. And some of them, quite frankly, are consistent with village staff. And I'm going to say something here, and I want to make sure that everybody understands, because I'm going back to December. And we are not addressing the proposal that was made by Mr. Wall back in December that was simply a concept plan. We are addressing the proposal right now. That being said, there were at least two comments tonight that were addressed or raised by the village staff back in December that I think are still relevant to the proposal that is before you right now. One is concerns with respect to massing infrastructure regarding single-family homes, and the other relates to traffic issues. And so one of the questions I have for you as you make your recommendation to the village board, is it only the inconsistency with the comp plan, or would you add to your bases for the recommendation concerns with respect to the massing of the structure in regard to the residential residences on Second Street and concerns about traffic? And I think that's a point of discussion, and I raise that because if those are factors, I think it is important for you to identify those factors for the village board so that they have that as part of the record when they make a decision.
Does that masking come into play if we don't rezone the south portion?
Well, I think it's also a point that was made in Jason's memo as in how it's incompatible with the comprehensive plan. I'm asking you whether or not you believe that is part of your rationale.
Is masking addressed as part of our concern with its incompatibility with the comprehensive plan?
Well, I guess maybe I should refer to Jason. What I'm referring to is that there's a sentence in your, you've obviously had the comments by the public, and you have a sentence in your memo on page 2 that says the proposal would replace 6 residential units with 81 units along the south half of the block, resulting in a significant change in the overall building capacity. And that seems to be, that's potentially relevant. Maybe it's not. I just wanted to raise the issue for you as you provide guidance to the village board.
Yeah, I would reinforce that there is some concern about the masking. I indicated in my memo that I think the architectural treatment on Second Street, in terms of taking that masking and making it more compatible, are heroic. It's a good treatment to the amount of volume that's there. I did point out that there's a lot of volume there. And also that one of my concerns was that with respect to the integrity of Main Street and what Main Street feels like, you're going to see that volume from Main Street, not just from Second Street. And you're going to see and I'm not just talking about Main Street, so I'm talking about the back of the building as it faces the current alley. It's going to be pretty prominent, and it doesn't have that same level of treatment. You're going to see the kind of flat 3 stories. So yes, that's a concern. The traffic is a concern about traffic and parking. I think that we've heard that reinforced several times by the audience tonight. The other thing I would like to point out from my memo is my concerns are not only consistency with the comp plan, but also consistency with the zoning market. So sit down the comp plan and ignore that for a minute. You have a request to put a 100% residential project in a district that is in a very brief statement of intent, intended for commercial. And regardless of what the comp plan says, I would never recommend that you take a use that is on its face inconsistent with the intent and rezone to that district.
So we're really not taking into account the site plan. Do we need to? Why do we have to talk about that? I'm not sure why.
You don't have to if you don't want to. I was just, it was something that was raised, and I heard at least one planning commission comment. If you would like your motion to effectively be the motion, and well, I'm just going to read it to you potentially. Motion to recommend that the village board deny the rezone request because it is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan as stated in the staff report. You can, that is sufficient basis for your recommendation. If the village board agrees with you, that is a sufficient basis for the denial of the rezoning request, if that is ultimately what the village board decides.
Okay, do we have any other discussion before? Okay, is there anybody who would like to make a motion right now?
You know, Chris, I do believe that the staff memo covers everything that we need to forward to the village board to let them know where we stand as a plan commission. So I guess I would make the motion to recommend the village board deny the rezone request because it's inconsistent with the comprehensive plan as stated in our staff memo.
Okay, so we have a motion by Pat McGowan, second by Joe Zisselberg. Any other comments? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. And the third?
The third motion is this isn't something that you need to do, but if it is something that you want to do, I think it would be helpful for the village board, potentially helpful for the developer, and also helpful for the public. There has been some comments to the effect by certain members to the effect of not only do they believe that the project is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan, and that's the basis for the rezone, but they would also not be inclined to amend the comprehensive plan to such that a project of this nature would be allowed and consistent with the comprehensive plan. And if that is the body's belief, I think it would be helpful if you made a motion to that effect so that it was worth it knows that. And quite frankly, I know there have been some comments about how long is this going to go on. That may provide some guidance to everyone.
So I think Pat mentioned that before. My question is, are we talking about that amendment for the entire comprehensive plan everywhere, or should it be limited to this area?
I think I would limit it to the extent that you are not interested in, if this is indeed your position, you are not interested in amending the comprehensive plan for the downtown district to allow for a project of this nature to be consistent.
Do we have that motion?
Just one other question, to Chris's comment, do we make that motion for the entire downtown district? Do we make it specific to this area? I think my feeling would be for the entire downtown district, but is that what's appropriate for tonight's meeting?
Well, I think the majority of the discussion we have tonight, both in favor of and opposed to this project, and the staff memo, I think really relates to not necessarily if you were to rezone C1D to something else, but rezoning R3D to C1D. So if you want it to be as specific as we're not inclined to amend the comprehensive plan as it relates to downtown to change uses in the residential uses in the comprehensive plan to more commercial uses. I think that needs, and if that's what you're getting at, I mean, that would be a very specific direction, I think, to the village board.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about being too specific. The discussion here has been great. It seems like we're all on the same page in terms of the idea of our comprehensive plan as it relates to this project. We're comfortable. So, having said that, I would make a motion that we should not change our comprehensive plan as it relates to downtown to allow for a project of this scale in this area. Is that accomplish what we're talking about?
Yeah, if I could add to that, I don't necessarily want us to conflate this to a general position on the entire downtown. I guess I would flip that a bit to say that if you're going to make another statement here, it would be something more to the effect of any
Do we have a second? Second by Brian Allen. Any other comments? Call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. We do have bathrooms out here if anybody needs them. And actually, I should ask if